Hi Bessies, I'm here to tell you about all the books I read in October and November. I read 11 books total, 7 in October and 4 in November. November's been a very rough month. But one of the reasons I was only able to read 4 books in November is because I entered my Hunger Games era. And I don't mean the books because I don't own them and I haven't read them. And that has been shocking everyone around me because I've been talking nonstop about the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And then people ask me my thoughts on the book and I just have to be like, oh, I haven't read it. I haven't gotten to the book yet because I don't own it and I've been too busy watching all 5 movies this week. I'm telling you this because this movie franchise has been absolutely detrimental to my reading this week. I think I've only read like 2 chapters this whole week. Also, like, school is getting in the way because it's project essay final season where you have like a million things to do in every single class. Anyway, let's talk about like all the books I read. I read fantasy, I read romance, I read mystery, and I'm just gonna talk about them in no particular order. In October, I read A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. This is the last book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, and I rated the trilogy as a whole as 5 stars, but this specific book is 4. The second book in the series is an absolute like 6-star read, so compared to that, this just looked sad. This book is really good. It just kind of felt like a little bit of a letdown after the second book was just amazing. I think a big reason why this book felt like a letdown is because a character that is irrelevant in my head had a big role in this book, and they just had a lot of page time that I didn't really care for. But I absolutely loved the 2 main characters and could never see myself rating this below 4 stars just because of them. The Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy is about a girl who's so in love with this boy, but then he is engaged to her stepsister. So the girl, Evangeline, goes and makes a deal with a fate, aka the Prince of Hearts. And he's a sneaky little fella. And there are more parts to the deal that she didn't really expect, blah 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 blah. It's amazing. Read it. I don't know how to explain it better. It is just a very fairy tale-esque world that just makes me happy and makes a whole bunch of people happy, and you should give it a shot if you want to. Another book I read in October was Hothouse Flower by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is book 5 of the Addicted Calloway Sisters series / book 2 of the Calloway Sisters series. I of course gave it 5 stars because I love this world and can't differentiate this book from the rest of the books. They all sort of bleed into another, and the world is 5 stars, and so I just had to give it 5 stars. The first book is a friends to lovers romance between 2 addicts. Our FMC Lily is addicted to sex and our MMC Lo is addicted to alcohol. So the best friends fake date to cover up each other's addictions. Also, they're super mega billionaire rich, but the tropes in this specific book is more so like a forbidden romance with like an age gap trope, but I really just adore the found family aspect found throughout this series. Alright, the next book I'm going to talk about is Check and Mate by Hazelwood. This is a YA romance, and I gave it 3 stars. Are you ever just like in the mood for like a cute little romance book, and then you're like halfway through the book and there's still like no mention of romance whatsoever? That's what this is. We like don't even get a conversation between these 2 characters until like 100 pages into the book. That being said, when we do get those crumbs of romance, they are fantastic. There are some really good bits and pieces of this book, but a lot of it is kind of just boring to me. This book features Mallory and Nolan. Mallory has chess trauma, and she quit chess years ago. But her best friend called her up and was like, I need you to play chess for like some charity thing. So she plays in a tournament and competes against Nolan, who is the bad boy in the chess world and the #1 player in the world. And then people are like, wow, maybe she should be the #1 player in the world because she is so good. Anyway, this is like a very cute little YA chess romance, but at the same time, I thought it was kind of boring. It's there. I also read The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes recently. This is a YA mystery with a love triangle in it. I didn't particularly like this. I gave it 2 stars, but like that's a very unpopular opinion, so don't be mad at me if you like this book. There aren't that many pages and the text is really big, so like you can get through it quickly. But basically this book is like Criminal Minds as teenagers. The FBI picks out teenagers and is like, you guys are going to be profilers and you're gonna solve cold cases. That being said, it is absolutely crazy that so many people can believe that the FBI would put teenagers in danger like that. Or the fact that they would just ask teenagers to solve cases that these trained agents can't. I just didn't really vibe with the characters because there are a lot of characters in this book, but I really only liked like 2 of them. And the others I just found kind of annoying. And I just wasn't a big fan of this book, but it's the first in a series. And I assume they're all fairly easy reads. and a lot of people really like them, so it could be your cup of tea, just not mine. Another book I read recently is Caught Up by Liz Tomforde. This book is incredible. This is like a 4.5 star read. It's just absolutely incredible. This is like a more serious sports romance. He is a single dad who is like the best pitcher in the MLB. He very much likes control and has been firing all of his nannies because he doesn't think they're best for his kid. So when the coach's daughter comes into town and is the new nanny, romance sparks. But that's like the coach's daughter. You can't just go date the coach's daughter, can you? And she's also like a little bit of a wild child, and he just doesn't like that because he doesn't want his kid to be around that. But then he changes his mind. I don't know. I just really liked it. I feel like I should also mention this is the third book in a series. I didn't read the first two though. They are interconnected standalones. If you don't want to read the first two, don't, because I didn't. Moving on to 2 fantasy books, I read The Assassin's Blade and Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I gave The Assassin's Blade 3 stars and Throne of Glass 4. Our main character is an assassin who is competing against other like criminals and assassins to become the king's champion, so she no longer has to be a slave. Fantasy romance. These books are pretty good, and apparently it just like gets better the more you read. So I'm like kind of excited. I'm currently reading the next book in the series, and I'll let you know all about that a little later. I read Before We Were Strangers like at the beginning of October, and I also really liked this and gave it 4 stars. This book is about Matt and Grace, who haven't talked in 15 years. You get to read about back in their college days when they like first started becoming friends to dating and like all of their background history. Then you read about their lives 15 years later when they don't talk anymore, but then randomly see each other in the city. This book is just really good, and it's a second chance romance, and who doesn't love a good second chance romance? Another book I read recently was Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I also gave this book 4 stars because it feels very comforting. This is another book with a strong found family aspect to it, and I love found family so much. This book is about Wallace, who is a terrible person and dies in chapter 1. Then he goes to like the in-between stage from life and the afterlife. This book has a lot of really serious conversations about life and death, and definitely makes you think a lot, because now that Wallace is dead, he's obviously thinking about everything that happened in his life, what he did wrong, what he did right, and it can get really sad. That being said, there are also some funny parts and some parts that will make you smile, but this book definitely feels like a very literary fiction that makes you rethink everything. Doing a full 180, I read Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. I gave this 2 stars. Mafia, romance, enemies to lovers, arranged marriage. The enemies to lovers aspect is absolutely well done because the 2 main characters want to kill each other. But I feel like with enemies to lovers, at least usually they have like respect for one another. And our main character in this book has no respect for women at all. He treats them all like dogs. I just didn't really like either one of the 2 main characters, but I liked all the side characters. And all of these side characters have their own books, so I could technically go on with the series, but I'm scared that if I read more of this series, I'm not gonna like the side characters anymore. Anyway, 2 stars. I didn't like the book. I don't really feel like talking about it anymore because it's gonna make me angry. The last book I read in the past 2 months is King of Wrath by Huang. Now this is also an arranged marriage with rich people who don't like each other, but I really liked this one. 4 stars. Even though the premise of this book is very similar to Brutal Prince, I just feel like this was well done and I just really enjoyed it. I feel like this book is better partially because like the characters can actually respect each other, but because I like the characters more. Even though the characters don't necessarily like each other, they can acknowledge why someone could appreciate the other. I just go off vibes when I'm reading books. I'm like, did I have fun? Did I not have fun? That's usually how it goes when I read a book. Anyway, those are all the books I read these past 2 months. Hopefully I read way more in December because I'm actually just so upset with myself that I only read 4 books in November. But now that I finished all the Hunger Games movies and they're being taken off Peacock, I should be spending more time reading. Anyway, I hope you all have amazing Decembers. Bye bye!